Hey guys, good morning. This is Dan. Welcome to Engelgeist. For those of you that are new, welcome. For those of you that are returning, welcome back. And for those of you that support me over on Patreon, thank you so very much for your monthly subscriptions. If you're interested in subscribing to the channel, you can certainly go over to patreon.com and look up Engelgeist and choose a subscription level. You will get the daily forecast over there early, a day early, plus other different readings that are available for different subscription levels over there. For those of you that are interested in a private reading, you can contact me via my Facebook business page. If you're watching this on YouTube, please go over and follow and like my Facebook business page and vice versa. If you see my work on Facebook, please go and subscribe to my YouTube channel and give the video a thumbs up if you feel so inclined. Questions and comments can always be directed to either the Facebook comment section, or the YouTube comment section, or you can message me directly at the Facebook business page. Alright, so this is a broad spectrum reading for many people, for all who see it at whatever given time. It is originally set for this Wednesday, October 21st. If you're watching it on the date it's not October 21st, that's completely fine. It is a message for the highest good, for the greater collective. Therefore, it should come to you when it's supposed to find its way to you, if that makes sense. If this doesn't apply to your life, or if you're working on something different than what you hear in this reading, that's completely fine. Sometimes it's actually better. So don't think that anything is wrong if maybe these cards don't match up to what's going on in your life or how you feel personally. There's plenty of great readers out on YouTube, so you can find your answers if you need them. Any decisions you make pertaining to this reading are your responsibility, so in your life. So whatever you see here, take what you need and leave the rest. Always trust your own intuition over serve anything I say. And let's get into the cards. So we're at Wednesday, the midweek point. The underpinning card is that rebellion card. So let's see what we've got going on. What was that noise? Weird. Alright, so this is Emily Bronte. We have another witch, right? Her word is fantasy. We had on Sundays, we had 3 literary witches. These are to me like the major arcana. So it's interesting, Emily's holding on to this house to me, and it feels like the house is sort of where we're grounded, or where we are connected to the world, right, to the physical world. And if you look at Emily's hips or her waist, she has no hips. Like, she almost feels like, although she's connected to her world, she's not really cemented in there, and that might be the fantasy aspect of this card. It's interesting too, there's all of these ants on the trees around her. And what I think this means, or what I'm going to sort of interpret it as, is sort of where in our life are we trying to connect and not feeling like we're fully hitting there, or we're able to really cement what it is that we need. The ants to me feel like almost like problems we're trying to maybe control, but we can't really we can't get control of them. Does that make sense, right? Like, ants are so minute, but when they come together, they can compile and be a bigger issue, right? And so when I look at these ants kind of marching around the house, around the trees around her, to me, it sort of feels like she might be trying to connect to her world in a way that is maybe too controlling, or maybe not, it might be a fantasy in that regard, right? Like, she's not necessarily, I don't feel this is a bad card, right? What I feel like is the way that we maybe operate in our world isn't always, say, in our best interest, or connecting us in such a way that empowers us fully, right? It's those missing hips there that have kind of got me obsessed. It's like that's where she connects into that home, or into her day-to-day life. The home representing like the physical world, the reality, maybe our actual homes, our jobs, our relationships, where we're connecting in. We may not be feeling fully validated, realized, appreciated, whatever that may be for us, right? And then these ants come in, and to me, that's like the smaller things appearing bigger, or maybe becoming more like harder to, I don't want to say control, but it just kind of feels like things around us might feel like they were sort of adding up, and also this too is a fantasy, right? Like where things might seem worse than they really are. Does that make sense? And so when we look at this with coupled with that rebellion card, which was about what I felt like that woman trying to kind of get her perspective, that literary witch trying to get her security back and get centered again, it kind of connects with this. But first we have to kind of see where we're disconnected so that we can then begin to find a new way to center, or a new way to connect and ground in our physical sort of experience or reality. I hope that doesn't sound too far-fetched or crazy, but that's kind of what I feel like is going on. The things going on around us that might not be sort of maybe working in our favor might be like these ants, kind of annoying, small, yet coupled together, they might be getting to us to a degree, right? Because we're seeing them all maybe at once, or piling them together and making them maybe a bigger issue than they really need to be, is the feeling that I get from this card. And that's also part of the fantasy that's going on in this world. So that rebellion card, to me, is kind of like that sort of rebelling against our roles, or how we are normally perceived, expected to be in our relationships, and maybe having to change that. Maybe having to see the fantasy for what it is and break free of it. Does that make sense? So let's see what the Queen of the Moon Oracle has to say. Okay, so we have the waning gibbous moon number 3, which is balance. Interesting, because it feels like with those clouds above her face, blocking her vision, to me it sort of feels like she's in a fantasy a little bit, or can't quite see very clearly. The word balance also like brings us that idea of where are we out of balance, and that's where I sort of feel like the missing hips here in Emily Bronte's card kind of feels like the way that she connects to her world isn't necessarily working for her right now, or her best place to be, right? So balance card is number 19, which becomes a number 10, which becomes a 1, which becomes self-focus, right? When we're at the vibration of a number 1, it's always about kind of the self. And so to me, it's like, where can we bring ourselves into balance? And when we do that, we bring, this fantasy back into reality. We bring ourselves and connect to our world, to our situations, to our relationships in a way that is more grounded, more realistic, more possible, all of those sort of things. But I feel like we have to look for those things, right? Not look for them, but we have to see them clearly. And to do that, we may have to look to our own internal intuition and our own light, right? And this is sort of like the solar plexus and the heart area where she's holding this world. I love that we have these autumnal leaves, which kind of indicate the changing of the seasons, which is also like sort of October this month. We also have all of the different cycles of the moon. Like we're maybe been going through this for some time. That might mean that might be a message for some of you, is that you've maybe been struggling with this off and on for some time. You may get clarity or find balance, and then it sort of lose that balance again. And part of that has to do with sort of maybe the way that we've been operating has been a little bit maybe too optimistic, or wherever that fantasy keys in for us, wherever the reality is not matching up to what we think we're I don't know if it's working towards or actually receiving, if that makes sense. All right, let's go to the grounding stone. I feel like that balance card is also all about like kind of finding our answers from within. Like we have to stop looking to the outside world. Is also because some of what Emily Bronte is doing is she's looking at those small problems of those ants, and they're kind of becoming a central focus for her. It's maybe knocking her a little bit off of her center also, right? And when I look at that balance card, although she can't see because of the clouds, it's that she has the light of that world in her hands, in her knowing, right? In her intuition, that light of the moon. So when we trust and lean on that, we can find that balance and find our way through sort of the fog or the inability to see. Now, the grounding stone, we saw this I think last week or maybe the week before, but it's freedom. So remember, the underpinning grounding stone this week is wisdom, right? There's something, and the truth will set you free. Truth can be wisdom too, right? To know the truth is to be wise. And so when I think of the stone freedom, thinking about how do we bring ourselves back into a better balance, how do we connect to our world in a way that's productive and fulfilling for ourselves, right? Because we have that 19 in that balance card, which is the self. And then Emily Bronte is calling out this sort of fantasy. Where do we connect into that? Because when we do that in a more like sort of, I don't want to say practical, but do you know what I mean? A more realistic way, we will bring about that balance and we will gain that sort of freedom that we seek, or that happiness that we seek. Oh great, the dogs are up. All right, they're all acting a fool. Let me read these to you and then I gotta go feed the babies. So Emily Bronte, it's the, where's Emily Bronte? Please, second, it's fantasy. Here we go. So, dwelling, indulging, hiding in fantasy. Emily Bronte, 1818 to 1848, spent her uneventful life at the family home on the moors. She created fantasy worlds with her brilliant sisters Charlotte and Anne, brushed the carpet, and took walks in the hills. Brushed the carpet. After her death of tuberculosis at the age of 30, she achieved posthumous fame for Wuthering Heights, a vivacious novel of romance between two isolated, stormy characters, Catherine and Heathcliff. So I think that, of course, and this could be about relationships for some of you, but I think that this is also just about anything sort of in the physical, day-to-day world that affects us, or, where smaller problems are being exacerbated because of the fantasy of, where we're at versus what we're receiving, and how that affects us in our day-to-day. Now, let's go to Wayne and Gibbous number 3, card number 19. We had, and yesterday was Wayne and Gibbous number 4, which was beauty. Weird. Okay. Balance. Seek balance. Extremes of anything are rarely healthy or useful. There may be an overreaction that has caused the issue. Those ants, right? Overreacting to small problems. What was I just talking about? Ground yourself and allow your strength to rise from there. Be aware of where the imbalances in your life are at present. I seek and maintain healthy balance in my life. Working with the lunar cycle on a regular basis helps us actually experience the flow and balance of nature. The moon shows us the gradual and peaceful process of waxing and waning and the phases of perfect balance within. Our bodies, our minds, and our human spirits seek balance, yet perfect balance is almost impossible to achieve. Think on this. If we try to stand on one leg and balance ourselves, no matter how good at balancing on one leg we may be, it is a kind of dance, is it not? The large and small muscles in our legs adjust to keep us upright, always moving, never perfectly still. The rest of our body is also performing a myriad of adjustments. A little to the right here in one moment, a little to the center there. The point is that balance is a process, something we can actively seek if we are wise. We need to know when we are unbalanced so we can return to homeostasis. It is useful to know where our imbalances lie and to make a decision about moving towards a more balanced version. Self-reflection helps identify this. When we are too something, working too long, thinking too fast, eating too much, we need to be honest with ourselves so we can identify this quite easily. Allowing ourselves a more considered and balanced view invites a true peacefulness into our lives, something that many people crave in this incredibly busy and chaotic world. Balance allows us to understand that overwhelm isn't a place we want to visit, let alone set up home in. And that's interesting that Emily Bronte has that home there. The companion stone or metal is bloodstone, which is also a very grounding stone associated with the first chakra. You guys, there's freedom in this to be found, right? When we free ourselves up enough to find a, like, I don't know, I don't want to call you guys, I'm not saying anybody's ungrounded, I just feel like maybe the way that we're connecting to our situations or relating to them, we need to sort of gain a better perspective, and that will bring about the freedom and the balance that we seek. I hope that makes sense. That is your forecast for the day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment. Please subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so very much, and have a great day.